Back in Gotham, we resume with the Joker, who finds himself attacked by Prime Batman, but he easily knocks him over. Batman's leg is injured, but the game never really explains how, since he wasn't injured last time we saw him, and Joker doesn't kick him there.
Right in the belfry!
But Joker wins and hides as Hawkgirl and Yellow Lantern arrive to arrest Bruce. Joker is then attacked by Harley Quinn, now going by Harleen, who mistakes him for an imposter. It's worth noting that Harley is the only character in the game whose regime outfit is actually better than the Prime one, though that could just be because her Prime costume is a little bit shit. I like the green streak though, it's a nice touch. Strangely, the game presents Harley as totally dependent on the Joker, while the comics instead portray her as being totally fine without him, just having him be her motivation for working against Superman. Maybe it's because the comics were basing it on how she's portrayed in the main universe currently? I don't know, but it's just inconsistent. After a brief fight, Harley realises that it is the real Joker and happily takes him away to meet her underlings. Superman and Wonder Woman arrive at Prime Bruce's cell, where Supes immediately recognises that it's not the regime Bruce because his vitals are all wrong, whatever the hell that actually means. Clark begins his interrogation as Joker gives a speech to Harley's men at Arkham Asylum, which has been redecorated based on Joker. It's worth noting that this alternate version of the asylum does still have the transitions with the other Batman villains, including Scarecrow, who has naturally been dead since year 1 when Joker killed him to obtain the fear toxin. Now one could argue, well, the stage transitions are non-canon, so that doesn't matter. But then I put it to you that Scarecrow still shows up in year 5 of the comics, and not just in like, oh, a background role where it just shows a bunch of random villains. No. Actively involved in the scene, with dialogue, and helping the other villains to fight Robin. Did no one know? Did no one realise that Scarecrow was supposed to already be dead? I mean, even if he hadn't already been established as being killed by the Joker, do you not think Superman would have tracked him down and killed him because it was his fear toxin that was used to make him kill Lois? This Superman would absolutely see Scarecrow as an accessory to murder and would fucking kill him. So how is he alive in year 5? What was going through their minds? I don't know. Also, how has Superman not found Harley yet when she's taken over Arkham Asylum? I mean, you'd think he'd have leveled the place years ago, seeing how there's no real reason to have the asylum around anymore since all the regulars there are dead. Harley and her followers have the power pills, presumably from Batman, which we see makes one immune to bullets when Superman's forces attack, led by Hawkgirl and Nightwing. Hawkgirl faces Joker first but loses due to pig advantage, followed by a dumb card throwing minigame to keep Nightwing at bay. And the big battle going on in the cutscenes completely disappears once gameplay starts. Like, just have Joker get knocked into the other room, make his way back, then get knocked right back in by Nightwing. It's not difficult. Anyway, this Nightwing has a different voice, indicating that he is not Dick Grayson, but more on that later. Just know that design and personality wise, he's basically a long-haired version of the 90s movie version of Dick. So once Nightwing goes down, Batman and the Good Leaguers show up and the villains flee. Joker is forced to tell the others that Prime Bruce was captured, so the heroes plan to free him. Now, I'm not going to harp on about the Batman is the centre of the universe thing, at least not until it gets truly obnoxious. Regime Batman locks Joker up, though we don't actually know this until much later. All we know at the time is that Batman takes him somewhere. Prime, Clark, Barry and Victor aim to modify Barry's cosmic treadmill to pull the others back. There's something a bit off about using the cosmic treadmill in a story this dour and depressing. Meanwhile, Deathstroke meets with Lex to discuss joining the Insurgency, commenting how it's personal, while Batman leads the others to Wayne Manor. He reveals that Superman exposed his identity and froze his assets, explaining why he's underground. He also tells them what made Superman snap in the first place, and their responses seem intended to make the viewer feel like Superman's change of personality actually makes sense, when it really doesn't.
Superman was vulnerable, probably for the first time in his life.
Green Arrow died trying to explain that to him.
Alright, moving on.
The writing and acting are really on point here, but it's all let down by the fact that, as is often the case, they don't actually explain how Ollie died. Presumably either because the writers knew the comics would cover it, or it was a way to encourage people to read the comics to find out what happened. It also raised the question of where Black Canary is, given how she's usually Ollie's wife, and the comics reveal that she is indeed his wife in this universe. Prime story potential there, and they wasted it by leaving her out of the game. They do reference the Prime version later though, as if intentionally raising the question in the player's mind. Again, maybe it's to encourage people to read the comics. Batman departs with Aquaman to power up the Batcave while Ollie leads Hal and Diana to secure the entrance. Almost immediately Hal gets knocked out and Diana fights Killer Frost while Ollie goes up against Solomon Grundy. This minigame has Grundy get knocked back at the end of each segment, unlike Lex, which does help to not completely break immersion, but it does make me wonder why Ollie's firing Nightwolf's arrows. Artistic license or lazy reuse of assets? You make the call. We then see that Diana, a lifelong warrior from an ancient Greek civilization, cannot match Killer Frost in a sword fight. Third member of the Trinity, everybody. Jesus Christ. So after Diana's frozen to keep her out of the way, Ollie steps in to take Frost down, and you really start to realise Frost's costume here is a lot like what Storm of the X-Men usually wears, even down to that horrendous mohawk that a lot of people really like for some reason. As the heroes head into the Batcave, Superman meets with Lex to discuss methods of tracking them down. You do have to wonder why Clark can't just hear Lex's heartbeat or observe other telltale signs to tell that he's lying, but you kinda have to assume that everyone who isn't the main character of that chapter is an incompetent boob. But really this whole thing brings to mind a simple change you could make to fix a lot of what makes this setting so bad. Lex is Superman's closest ally who isn't one of his SS officers, and he's also a double agent, right? Well, what if we replaced Lex in that role with another supervillain, for example, Maxwell Lord? For the uninitiated, Maxwell Lord was a spokesperson for the League for a good number of years in the post-Crisis comic universe. He was later established as a secret supervillain in the Infinite Crisis event, where he was revealed to have been using mind control powers to keep the League ineffectual as part of his long-term plan to eliminate all superhumans on the planet. He was shown to be quite capable of controlling even Superman, leaving Wonder Woman no choice but to kill him. Now take that concept and run with it. Imagine that Max has a similar role to the comic version, a spokesperson and liaison for the League, secretly plotting to destroy them. He then arranges the nuke incident, explaining how the Joker got the thing without Lex's backing, and perhaps uses his powers in lieu of the fear toxin. He then pushes Superman to be more aggressive, to invert his values and make him lose sight of who he really is. This makes his friends oppose him, leading to a superhero civil war in which one side will destroy the other and, in turn, be finished off by Max, possibly by straight up commanding the remaining heroes to kill one another. Yes, resorting to mind control to justify this does take away a lot of Superman and his followers' agency in the story, turning it from a battle of ideologies, allegedly, into a story about Max's machinations, but it's really the only way you can justify initially heroic versions of these characters going so far off the deep end. Anyway, back to what we were saddled with. Clark gives Lex data on the Prime Batman for some purpose, then ponders aloud whether the Prime universe has a Lois. Again, it's strange that he's so hung up on Lois while simultaneously in a presumably sexual relationship with Diana. Down in the cave, Regime Batman explains that the cave is lined with lead, hence why Superman couldn't find the weapon. The vault is also explained a bit more.
Neutralizing Superman was not a call I could make alone. So I put the weapon in a vault that only opens by simultaneously sampling DNA from Superman's closest allies.
Again, Aquaman is just now getting around to starting relations with not only Superman but the world at large. How is he considered to be one of Superman's closest allies? But looking back on it, I'm pretty sure Aquaman is in the comics, contradicting his bio here, so God knows. I just wish the console had used their left hand so I could make a 90s hook hand Aquaman joke. Alas, it works out fine before Regime Diana and Black Adam arrive. Black Adam attacks Prime Diana and Hal and Arthur go to back her up, while Batman does something off screen, leaving Ollie against Regime Diana. Yeah, no, that's totally how they divide up the enemy. And of course, Diana isn't even slightly moved to see her old friend again after all these years, even if he is an alternate version and her Ollie was an enemy for a time.
Our Green Arrow was just as arrogant.
Bitch. Arthur goes down easy, then everyone else tries to pull Black Adam down from the air. He then summons lightning and knocks everyone out except, conveniently, our current character, since he's the only one without a direct line on Adam.
Should have seen that coming.
Yeah. With that pointless diversion resolved, the heroes leave to get the device repaired while Chapter 6 begins. While operating the cosmic treadmill, there's some malfunction that isn't really explained, which sends Cyborg into the other universe inside the Insurgency base.
Don't know whether to pat myself on the back, kick myself in the...
It's strange to have Cyborg cut himself off before he can say arse, despite having no issue having Ollie say shit earlier on. He then overhears Lex and Deathstroke discussing taking out Superman, leading to a surprisingly natural filler fight against Deathstroke while Lex runs off to get his power suit. Here you may also notice that not every transition from cutscene to fight is the same. While most of them stick to MK's uniform method of cutting to an in-game reaction angle then panning the camera out, sometimes the reaction is part of the pre-rendered cutscene, which then cuts directly into gameplay. I don't recall that being a thing in the original release, but I could be wrong. It's distracting and sometimes you're not prepared for it. After the Lex fight, conveniently, the other heroes arrive to break things up. Superman goes to the Batcave and realises Bruce has access to kryptonite. Once Cyborg is caught up, he suggests heading home to bring reinforcements, just as Superman announces his intention to execute Prime Batman later that day. The fact that it's a trap is pretty transparent. The new plan is for Cyborg to use a hologram to pose as his counterpart and teleport from the Hall of Justice to the Watchtower, then operate the teleporters from there to get Batman in and out while Aquaman leads a diversion. Deathstroke is sent with Cyborg as backup in case things go wrong, which of course they will because we need to justify random battles somehow.
But whatever history we have with our counterparts, you and I have none.
I downloaded your history. You've tried to kill this world's titans.
Only a couple times.
Then don't expect any warm fuzzies from me.
I do actually really like this dynamic. It raised the question of whether Regime Slade's actions against the Regime Titans can be held personally by Prime Cyborg. They don't do much with it of course, but I'm glad it's there since it gives both characters something actually interesting to work with, however briefly. Catwoman arrives through the teleporter, proving that she has never looked good in purple, and him responding to her greeting tips her off that he's an imposter. It's clear Regime Cyborg would never respond happily to her, so would he normally just ignore her? Then why would she even bother greeting him? It's not like she's already suspicious because she shows no signs of that until he responds, so what exactly is it about his disinterested response that tips her off? She exposes him and chooses to fight the shiny metal man instead of calling it in because this is NetherRealm Selina, who I'll be discussing a lot more later. Once that fight's over, Regime Cyborg starts hacking Prime Cyborg and calls it in, but the transmission is intercepted by Prime Wonder Woman. The two cyborgs have a hack-off for about 30 seconds, but there's really no physical response to anything either of them does. Like, one's arm should freeze or go limp, forcing him to work with one hand to restore the arm and fight back at the same time. Hell, why wasn't this one of those mini-games? That could have been cool. But no, the hack-off ends in a stalemate and Victor beats up his counterpart like normal. That done, Slade arrives and explains it's personal because they tortured him. If you assumed when that was first mentioned that they were alluding to something more along the lines of his children being murdered by Superman's forces, you're not the only one. In a way, it's kinda disappointing that it's not because, yeah, of course it's personal when someone tortures you, so you don't need to say it multiple times. The two arrive on the Watchtower where Victor explains he can access their network now thanks to the botched hacking attempt of his counterpart.
I'm actually beginning to like you.
Slade heads off on his own mission, coming across Flash and Shazam, and yes, you spend Deathstroke's entire chapter as a version of the character without his iconic mask.
Yeah, I asked myself, what if what happened to Lois happened to Iris?
It made sense at first. Bad people got what they deserved. But now?
Barry tries to reassure Billy that Clark won't actually kill Bruce, but Billy brings up Ollie's death, which gives Barry pause. See how great it is when you get a glimmer of who these people are supposed to be? Once again, the two are easily separated thanks to a couple mines Flash blindly runs into, allowing Slade to dispatch Billy first and Barry second. And of course we see Martian Manhunter bumming around the arena despite having been dead since year one. After beating Billy, Slade heads down to the reactor. It's kinda cool getting to start a fight in an area other than the arena's default for once. Slade sets a call to blow, giving the heroes a time limit to get Batman out of there. After that, Lex sends Slade to Ferris Airfield to get some tech to re-weaponize Batman's weapon. They keep it from Batman so he doesn't get himself killed trying to use it once it's fixed, else Insurgency die with him.
Lex Luthor risking his life to save Batman. I wanna believe it.
Bruce tells Harley to have her guys keep the cops busy, but she's secretly freeing the Joker. Prime Superman and Flash are still trying to work things out, which more than anything just points out that they are the only people working on this. Where are Nightwing, Hawkgirl, Shazam? You could at least show some background models like Manhunter or this dude working on stuff in the background even if they don't speak. It makes the universe feel really small is what I'm saying. Slade arrives in the same hangar he was being tortured in earlier, which, yeah, why was he being tortured in a hangar of all places, and why is there a big important computer here? And I'm pretty sure that this is the only arena that only has one area, so then why not add an office area to the stage just for the sake of the story mode fights? Villa Frost points to a potential origin point of the dimensional transfers, i.e. the Insurgency base, but Diana acts like more of a frigid bitch than the actual ice-wielding villain because it's not concrete. Superman can fly there or Barry can run there and check it out within 5 minutes. In fact, Diana even tells Frost to send it to Flash to check it out. Die in a fire, you colossal asshole. While Frost does this, Slade sneaks in, pulls Diana away from right beside her, and ties her up with her own lasso. He's not a ninja, and she should have been able to break free of his grasp because she has super strength. While Slade fights Frost, Diana breaks out and we get a scene that's reminiscent of a scene in MK vs DCU, only Slade can still use his pistol during the fight, unlike Jax.
You were offered amnesty, Deathstroke. You should have taken it.
And missed my chance to battle Superman's rebound girl?
How dare you? I'm an Amazon.
As if being an Amazon somehow precludes her from being a rebound girl. Once Slade gets the tech, we transition into Chapter 8, Batman. Yes, you heard that right, Batman gets a second chapter. I don't give a crap that it's a regime Batman this time, that's still 2 chapters for Batman when they could have easily given us another character like Harley, or had someone like Selina defect. Aquaman leads the attack on giant sea creatures, which Superman is too stupid to realise is an obvious diversion, despite the leader of the Insurgency being Batman. The other Flyers are present to engage each other, while Bruce and Ollie just waltz right in with no opposition aside from Nightwing and Catwoman. Superman apparently cannot hear them when they're on the same island, and you thought him not being able to find his mother in Batman v Superman was a plot hole. Selina goes first, flirting with Bruce, who's more disinterested than ever. She explains that she joined Superman to protect Bruce, which rings kinda hollow when one considers how she acts before and after this scene. She claims to have misdirected Superman until now, but whether it's true or not is unclear. It could be that the writers failed to provide evidence, or she could just be insane, which are both honestly how this scene comes off. Since Bruce won't leave with her, Selina is a woman scorned and fights him. You can see the problems right off the... yeah. These are the same people who made Mortal Kombat vs DC Universe. In that game, DC heroes have non-fatal heroic brutalities, while MK characters and DC villains have the series' signature fatalities. Selina, bafflingly, falls into the latter group because Selina Kyle is so well known for her propensity to violently murder people. Yes, she's killed at least once in the comics, but considering Black Mask made her sister eat her husband's eyeballs, I think we can give her a pass on that one. But perhaps worse than that, her chemistry with Bruce and the sexual tension between them is completely absent. I don't believe the two characters exchange a single line of dialogue in the entire story. The two do not interact at all, even in the few scenes where they are together. And then for Injustice, it seems like they took it too far in the other direction. Here she is, as Yahtzee so eloquently put it, Batman's lovesick stalker. He also makes a great comparison between this Selina and the one from the Arkham series, a comparison made all the more apt by both versions being voiced by Grey DeLisle. Like, why would you bother going to the effort of getting an established voice actor for a character to reprise the role with a depiction that's nothing like the original? Oh wait! It's also worth noting that this isn't just a twisted alternate universe version. The Prime version is part of Luthor's plot to nuke Metropolis. Yeah, mass murder is totally something Selina would be up for. The only way she would ever be involved in something like this would be to leak information to Batman. But no, she's just evil for no fucking reason. And just to top it all off, when she does a clash with Batman, they use their generic lines. There's unique dialogue between Batman and Scorpion from Mortal Kombat, but not Bruce and friggin' Selina. How do you even do that? You know what, NetherRealm? You clearly either don't understand Selina, or you just don't give a shit. You're like Zack Snyder having Jimmy Olsen get shot in the face 5 minutes in, and having Dick Grayson be long dead. If you don't like her, don't fucking bother putting her in. Do not waste my time with this shit.
I have a job to do.
So do I.
God, these guys deserved a better story than this. We then learn that this Nightwing is Damian Wayne, Bruce's biological son.
You stopped being my son when you killed Dick Grayson.
Oh, and guess how much they elaborate on this and how much it gets brought up outside of this scene? Yeah, not at all. You would think the murder of the original Robin would be brought up more than once and properly explained, but nope! And in case you're wondering, in the comic we do learn what happened. In year 1, Dick Grayson, prodigy trapeze artist, original Robin and first disciple of Batman, got knocked off balance by Damian's baton and broke his neck on a stone. Truly the heroic end he was always meant to have. I have no idea what happened here, I just thought you guys might find it amusing.
You're dead to me.
We are at war with these animals.
They head into the Citadel from Half-Life 2 where they find Prime Bruce's pod. Raven then takes control of Green Arrow's body or mind, it's not clear, and Regime Bruce has an arrow catching minigame in which his counterpart's pod is conspicuously absent despite there normally being a pod there in the stage anyway. Raven then arrives in person but gets punched out by Prime Bruce because Yellow Lantern then arrives. I'm not entirely sure why we couldn't just fight Raven instead of unnaturally dragging Hal into it, but I think it's that they wanted to have every character aside from Superman be fought twice. Hal shows no remorse towards Bruce despite the history, but Bruce does say,
Superman is the enemy, Hal, not me.
Which is something, I guess. Outside, Superman easily chokes Diana out because she's fucking useless, and he then stomps Arthur and Hal. He finally notices the others escaping the facility and confronts them.
I could have prevented Metropolis, saved my family.
Prime took my family too, Clark.
If you weren't the gun.
Oh, actual attempts to characterize the duo and make Superman's actions more understandable? What backwards dimension have I crossed into? They get teleported away once they're outside the building's defences, and Clark heads for the Watchtower as it explodes. He then hears Lex calling him out and heads back to Earth. Again, he can hear Lex's shouting from space, but he can't hear full-blown conversations and battles on the island he's currently on.
I can't.